Hey everybody, I hope everyone's happy and healthy. This is Brian with Retired at 40, and today we're going to continue our Harvest Right freeze drying. And today we're going to do three types of sauces. We're going to do a homemade hot sauce, we're going to do a homemade salsa, and we're going to do a homemade chili sauce. Those are three of our favorites around here, but I'd really like to see if I can freeze dry them because making them in small batches is not always the best way to do it. If we can make them in big batches and just rehydrate them when we need them, it'd be ideal. So let's get to it. So getting right into this, we're going to make the salsa first. And the salsa, you can definitely adjust this recipe for quantity and for flavor. If you like it spicier, you can add more jalapenos. You want more onion. This is just kind of a baseline of what you want for your recipe, but I'm using Roma tomatoes. So I'm gonna do 8 Roma tomatoes, or you probably want 4 or 5 of the beef tomatoes, the big ones. You need a handful of cilantro, about that much. We use 3 jalapenos, 1 onion, 4 cloves of garlic, 3 or 4 cloves of garlic depending on how garlicky you want, and then we're just gonna add salt to taste. We're doing this recipe first. It does take a little bit longer than the others because you have to account for the cook time. So we'll do our jalapenos first. These just go straight on. You leave all the stem, all the seeds in for right now. And then your 4 cloves of garlic. Okay, and then for the garlic, we're just gonna take the ends off. If you can use fresh garlic, I would recommend using fresh garlic. It definitely adds a lot better flavor, as fresh garlic always does. And then I'll show you a cool little gizmo that we have, a kitchen gizmo. I'll put a link down in the description of what it is, but it's just a garlic roller. And it looks like that. You stick it in here, you give it a roll, it takes all the skin off for you, which is the most annoying part of cooking with garlic. That's all ready, that's going on the pan. Then we're gonna do our whole onion. And our onion we're just gonna slice into slices like that. And the reason being is this is going to be broiled and it gets a lot more of that charred flavor, which is what kind of gives the salsa its flavor. And if you put it into smaller pieces like this, then it's just going to get more surface area that has that charred flavor to it. Before we cut up these tomatoes, we're going to put our oven on broil. And you want to move your rack all the way closest to the broiler if you can. So on the tomatoes, we're going to take this little part where the stem is attached to the tomato. You want to take that out because it's kind of a tough part. Just flip that out with a knife. And then we're going to cut these down lengthwise and set them up. So look at that deliciousness. So this is just going to go as far or as close as you can get to the broiler. There's no correct time on how long to leave these in. We like them, we've found, to be almost blackened to a crisp on both sides, and it sounds crazy, but to us it adds a lot more flavor. I'll show you how we like it. So our jalapenos look like they are just about done. See how they're blackened on one side, so we're gonna flip those over. Again, this is not necessary, you don't have to do this. This is what we have found we like the taste best as. Our onions are getting pretty close, it looks like. Tomatoes are usually the last to get done, so I'm gonna put this in here. Right now, I think these have been in for about 13 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and flip all of them over now. I think we're all good. The second round actually went quite a bit faster than I thought it would. I'll show you what everything looks like here. So this was in for just about half an hour total, I think. And you can see everything has a nice crisp on it. The skin is starting to bubble up. The jalapenos are nice and soft now. Onions are soft. So next we're going to put it into a food processor and we're just about done. So we're going to take our jalapenos, we'll cut the stems off, and then we're going to cut them lengthwise and just take a fork because it'll be hot, and we're going to scrape our seeds out down the length of the jalapeno. And you're going to keep your seeds in case you want to add some spice later, because that's where all your heat is going to come from. Take all your cooked ingredients, put them in a food processor or a blender. And also add your handful of cilantro. Don't put in your salt yet, you're gonna add that after. We're gonna give this a little bit of a blend. And then you're going to want to add about half a cup of water, give or take, because as this cools, it will actually thicken up. So this is now done with the exception of how salty and how spicy you want it. So we always give it a couple good taste tests because every batch is going to vary to a certain extent. You want to see what it needs more of. And this one to me needs more salt and more heat, so I'm going to do that now. I'll give you a close-up of what mine looks like. I just added some more seeds and some more salt. So we're ready to add this to our freeze dryer tray. I'm going to utilize the silicone baking mats right now because I think, and actually for all the recipes today, because I think that it's probably going to have a tendency to stick, especially the sweet chili sauce. I'm also going to answer our question whether yeast can survive the freeze dry process. So I'm going to stick the yeast in the corner. I really just didn't feel satisfied after that last bread video that I got a conclusive yes or a no, so we're going to find out on this. But I'm going to add this salsa to the freeze dry tray. And it looks like you could probably do another half batch of this on a tray, maybe even another whole batch. So you can get quite a bit of salsa onto one freeze dryer tray. Here, try some. Okay, for our sweet chili sauce, we just need a saucepan. We're gonna need some rice vinegar, just a half a cup of that. And this recipe, you kind of just throw everything together and bring it to a boil, and then you add a little cornstarch. Then you need half a cup of water. Next, we'll do a cup of sugar. Yes, 1 whole cup. Then we're gonna do 6 cloves of garlic. And then 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. You can also use tamari sauce. The next thing is, it's optional and it's fish sauce, but we always use it. If you do want to use it, it's a teaspoon of fish sauce. And then you're gonna want 4 to 6 teaspoons of red pepper or red chili flakes. And this is gonna depend on how hot you want this because this is gonna add a lot of heat to it. We're gonna bring this up to a boil and we're gonna let it boil for 3 to 5 minutes. And while we're waiting for that, we're gonna get our cornstarch and water slurry put together. And that slurry is gonna consist of 2 tablespoons of water with 3 teaspoons of cornstarch, and we're gonna whisk it all together because that's gonna get added slowly into our other mixture. Once we've been to a boil for 3 to 5 minutes, we're gonna add all this cornstarch, and you're gonna wanna whisk this constantly on low heat for another 3 to 5 minutes until you reach that desired consistency. And this will thicken a bit as it cools, so keep that in mind. And that's it for the sweet chili. We do need to let it cool, which obviously the freezer will do that, but I think the easiest way to do is just to go into ice cube trays if you have them. It'll make it freeze dry a lot easier. I think it'll keep it from sticking to stuff. So let's see if we can get these in here without making a giant mess. The sweet chili sauce is pretty sticky. So this recipe filled just almost the whole tray by itself, which is probably about what you would want. It'll fill up a good sized sauce bottle. Alright, I saved the hot sauce for last because we're gonna need 10 ounces of hot peppers. And if you have anything else to do in the kitchen for the next couple hours, I would probably not count on it because it will just completely consume the kitchen with heat. You'll be coughing. So make sure it's ventilated in here. You can use any kind of peppers as long as there's 10 ounces of them. I'm gonna use habaneros and jalapenos. And then if I need to cut it down, like it's too hot, then you can use like an Anaheim pepper or just a regular old green pepper, yellow pepper, orange pepper, red pepper, something like that. You can use any kind of peppers, but you can use serranos, ghost peppers, as long as there's 10 ounces, so start with that. So you're gonna want a big frying pan, and you're gonna wanna heat up some oil. We're gonna add 6 cloves of garlic to that hot oil. Okay, then we're gonna have an onion that's thinly diced, and we'll add our 10 ounces of hot peppers. We're gonna saute these on high heat for 3 minutes. Oh! It's getting mighty spicy in here. I'm gonna add 2 cups of water, and then we're gonna let that cook for about 20 minutes. You stir occasionally until most of the water is evaporated. This is nice and cooked down now. We're gonna take it off the heat completely, and we're gonna let it go to room temperature which usually takes about 30 minutes or so. Then we're gonna go into a blender. So after this is all cooled, we're gonna add all of the ingredients to a blender. And mix this until you have a smooth puree. And you can see ours is turning out green. That's because of the type of peppers we used. But obviously if you're using red peppers, you can get a red hot sauce. So the last thing you need to do is add 1 cup of white vinegar very slowly to the mix with the blender going. It's hot. Oh, I didn't even have to taste it to find that out. Oh, good stuff. So if you wanted to tone it down a little bit, this is when you'd throw in some Anaheims or just a green pepper, something that's a little bit more mild. We like ours to be really spicy because we like just to be able to add a few drops or 4 or 5 drops, and it's plenty spicy. So if you have a Vitamix, you can completely pulverize this and it's done. Otherwise, if you just have a regular blender, you'll probably have to strain it to get some of those bigger chunks out in order to get it through a dropper style hot sauce bottle. So this is about a year's supply of hot sauce right here. Which is great if this freeze dries, because you never want a whole ton of hot sauce at one time anyway. This would go bad before you even had a chance to use it. So I'm gonna get this one in the freezer. That's the last one in the freezer, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good morning. Let's see if everything got frozen. Here's our salsa and our yeast, nice and frozen. Hot sauce. And our sweet chili is cubed, but I think the amount of sugar in it is gonna make it probably not work. I can't get them out, so I'm gonna leave them in the tray, and then I'll fill in the rest of this tray with some of these extra peppers here. So it took 45 hours, which I was not expecting. I didn't think it would take that long, but let's see if everything got done and see how that sweet chili, if anything changed on that. It smells really good. It smells like hot sauce in here. So the hot sauce is nice and dry. Salsa kind of blew up a little bit, looks like. Oh yeah, and I forgot we've got our yeast in here too. So we're gonna check and see if the yeast actually survived this process. Uh-oh. This tray's not wanting to come out, and I know why. See if I can get you a good shot in here. You can see there's the ice cube trays, and they're stuck to the top. So it looks like that 1 cup of sugar that we put in the sweet chili sauce had about the same effects as sugary substances usually do, but you know, you've got to fail every once in a while to succeed, or at least to know what you're going to fail at. And once again, just high sugar does not work in the freeze dryer. So I'm going to try and wedge this thing out of here. Well, I'm going to call that a fail. However, you did get a good recipe out of it, and I'm hoping that I can at least just add some water to this and save a lot of it and just reuse it. So our hot sauce is perfect. It's exactly how you want it to be. There's no doubt in my mind this will turn out exactly how we need it to. Anything that's powdery like this just always does really well. I'm not going to do very much because I want to actually use this for later. Our salsa, same thing. Very crunchy, very dry. No doubt it will rehydrate just the way we want it to. Our yeast, I'm just going to add back to a bowl, and I'll make some bread out of it if it actually rises. So I'm going to measure the amount of water that I put back with it. But it looks exactly the same way. It doesn't change shape. It doesn't, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of moisture in it maybe, but there's none in it now. So let's go ahead and just add a little bit of water to the salsa, and there's no use, in my opinion, to measure the amount of water that comes out of it, because that way you can change the consistency when you actually rehydrate it. So if it's a little watery when you put it in, you can fix that when it comes back out. Here's our salsa after freeze drying, and here is our rehydrated salsa. You'd never know the difference. And I like that you can make it a little bit thicker if you want to, because sometimes the salsa comes out a little bit watery. Here's our hot sauce. And I saved this for a second because this is really, really hot. Because of all those habaneros. Little dab will do you on this stuff. Woo! Real good though. Exactly how you want it. So here's what's cool about the hot sauce is here's our last batch that we made. You just add a little water to the bottle, crush this up into a powder, and then just shake it up, and you can add as much or as little as you want. And the rest is you can put into storage until you actually need it. Alright, so this is the moment that I'm trying to do to redeem myself from the bread video. I'm going to add some water to it, and we're going to see if this will foam back up. Because if it does, then it can survive the freeze-dry process, and it was something else that caused it to not survive. Well, it looks like it's bubbling to me, so I'm going to make a batch of bread, and we'll know the definitive answer here after I make that. Woohoo! Well, there's our answer. It worked. Oh yeah, problem solved. So I think the key to making bread turn out and anything that has yeast in it is to not rise it. So I would go straight into the freezer with it. Obviously the yeast did fine after the freeze drying process by itself. I actually rose it twice and the bread turned out great. Well, we just had one failure today. Everything else was a success, and I actually got a chance to redeem myself on the bread, so I'm happy about that. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.